What's up? So I haven't posted a video in a while, not since I guess the end of Armageddon, and I was thinking of doing the same sort of process of recording everything I was doing for this project that I'm working on, but that just took so much time to edit all of that video together that I didn't really have any time to spare. At the same time, I don't want to let this go completely without recording it, so I'm going to record a little bit of something today. These are molds that I've made for bones. I'm working on a project for the Lantern Theater Company called A Skull in Connemara. It's currently running. They've extended the run. It closes on January 13th, or sorry, February 13th. So tickets are available now. You can follow the link to lanterntheater.org and find out more about the show and stuff like that. But the show is essentially about a guy who digs up a bunch of graves, and he finds all these bones, and then he ends up, like, well, I don't want to give it away, but they need a bunch of bones. They need millions of bones. So my job is to make all of these bones. So all of these molds here they're silicone molds which look like this. That is part of a silicone mold for ribs. These are the ribs in here, and then these are dowels. I glued dowels to connect all the ribs together. The silicone is so floppy that if you pour plaster into this, it's not going to hold together. So that's why I have plaster mother molds on the outside of it. So you can see all of the silicone sort of poking out where I poured it into the plaster mother mold, and then you tie it all together and wrap a little clay around the seams, and that will seal off any leaks. Ideally you make them so well that they wouldn't have leaks to begin with, but these were made kind of in a hurry, so I just needed to start producing these bones. So then I mix plaster with water. There's a little bit of white glue in the water to act as a hardener, and then I pour the plaster into these plaster cures. In roughly an hour I can pop it back out and then just keep making them. Yeah, so these this long one here, there's a femur in here, and there's 3 other longer bones. You can see sort of the edge of the femur where that's going to stop. So the femur is about here, and then there's 3 other bones in this mold. This one is the coccyx. That one's a shoulder blade. This is a hip bone. This is a vertebrae. These are the ribs in here. I can actually show you. So this is what the mother mold looks like, and then the silicone mold sits inside the mother mold like that. And then you tie it all together and you pour the plaster in here. You got to shake out all of the air bubbles and stuff like that. These are the skulls over here. It's called a skull in Connemara, and so I took a lot more time on the skull mold than I did on the other molds. This is the base of the skull. This mold is 6 pieces here, and then this is the cap of the skull. This mold is 2 pieces, and this is the jaw back here. This mold is 2 pieces. I'm going to record myself taking out these bones so you can see the demolding process at least. That'll come up in a second. So to make everything on this table, it takes me about an hour and a half to demold everything, to pop everything out of the molds, put everything back, clean everything up, and then put everything back together, and then mix plaster and pour it back in. That's about an hour and a half. And it's the same thing for the legs over there. That takes about an hour and a half. And the same thing for everything on that table back there. It takes about an hour and a half. So even though the plaster is ready to pop out in about an hour, the earliest I can get back to this is another hour and a half. So it takes 3 hours essentially for every for every set. So 3 hours for a skull, 3 hours for the legs, 3 hours for everything back on that table. And they need a total of 90... Oh no, I guess it's more than that now that they've extended the run. So what would it be? Like almost 115, I would assume. Yeah, about 115 skulls, 115 copies of all of those, everything in the leg mold there, everything in the where the femur is, and slightly less of everything on that table. So it's a lot of work. It takes a ton of time to put it together. I've been working like 30-hour shifts, go home, sleep for a bit, come back. When they pop out of the molds, they look like this over here. Here's a row of jaws. These are some shoulder blades. These are, this is the femur, and then these are the 3 other bones that are in that mold. Vertebrae down there. These are bones that have been painted, the coccyx and the pelvises down there. When the skull comes out, it looks like this. And I'll be popping one of these out so you can see it. You can see that it's in 2 pieces here with burrs on it and irregular edges and things. You can see the line from the mold right there where the mold sections meet. Mold lines. There might be some holes in the back from where the dowels were glued to the thing. And then like that's the avenue where I pour the plaster in. The reason that these are in 2 pieces is because these things end up getting broken on stage. So if it wasn't in 2 pieces, like if this was just like slip cast, then the inside of this would be completely smooth, like the inside of a balloon, essentially. The outside of it might have some of this character, but the inside of it would be totally smooth, and it would be gleaming white. When it was broken, then that would sort of be a disconnect from whatever the outside of it looked like, because the inside of your head, well, the inside of most people's heads is not completely smooth or gleaming white. So we have all of this character in here where the brain sits in the brain case, and we wanted to paint that to look like there had been a brain in there that rotted away. So the only way to do that was to make this thing in at least 2 pieces. So we have 2 pieces here. The insides of them get painted, and then they get glued together. And then we take it over to the next step,